Which of the following instrument conditions is acceptable and does not require immediate correction? Case paint chipped. An indication of unregulated power charges that result in continual drift of manifold pressure indication on a turbo supercharged aircraft engine is known as bootstrapping. A change in engine manifold pressure has a direct effect on the mean effective cylinder pressure. What instrument on a gas turbine engine should be monitored to minimize the possibility of a hot start? The turbine inlet temperature. Jet engine thermocouples are usually constructed of chromo alumel. The RPM indication of a synchronous AC motor tachometer is governed by the generator frequency. Instruments that provide readings of low or negative pressure, such as manifold pressure gauges, are usually what type? Diaphragm or bellows? In what units are turbine engine tachometers calibrated? Percent of engine RPM. In a turbine engine, where is the turbine discharge pressure indicator sensor located? Immediately aft of the last turbine stage. What would be the possible cause if a gas turbine engine has high exhaust gas temperature, high fuel flow, and low RPM at all engine power settings? Turbine damage or loss of turbine efficiency. The exhaust gas temperature EGT indicator on a gas turbine engine provides a relative indication of turbine inlet temperature. Engine pressure ratio is determined by dividing turbine outlet total pressure by engine inlet total pressure. What is the primary purpose of the tachometer on an axial compressor turbine engine? Monitor engine RPM during starting and to indicate overspeed conditions. The EGT gauge used with reciprocating engines is primarily used to furnish temperature readings in order to prevent engine overtemperature. Engine pressure ratio is the total pressure ratio between the front of the compressor and the rear of the turbine. On an aircraft turbine engine operating at a constant power, the application of engine anti-icing will result in a noticeable shift in the EPR. Which of the following is a primary engine instrument? Tachometer. Which statement is true regarding a thermocouple type cylinder head temperature measuring system? The voltage output of the thermocouple system is determined by the temperature difference between the two ends of the thermocouple. Basically, the indicator of a tachometer system is responsive to change in frequency. Which of the following types of electric motors are commonly used in electric tachometers? Synchronous motors. A complete break in the line between the manifold pressure gauge and the indication system will be indicated by gauge registering prevailing atmospheric pressure. The outside air will be red because it is broken. A manifold pressure gauge is designed to indicate absolute pressure in the intake manifold. On a twin-engine aircraft with fuel-injected reciprocating engines, one fuel flow indicator reads considerably higher than the other in all engine operating configurations. What is the probable cause of this indication? One or more fuel nozzles are clogged. The fuel flow indication data sent from motor-driven impeller and turbine and motorless type fuel flow transmitters is a measure of fuel mass flow. In addition to fuel quantity, a computerized fuel system, CFS, and totalizer indicator provides indication of how many of the following: the fuel flow rate, fuel used since reset or initial startup, and fuel time remaining at current power setting. The fuel flow indication system used with many fuel-injected opposed engine airplanes utilizes a measure of fuel pressure. The fuel flow indicator, rotor, and needle for the motor, impeller, and turbine indicating system is driven by an electrical signal. Motor-driven impeller and turbine fuel flow transmitters are designed to transmit data using aircraft electrical system power. The fuel flow meter used with a continuous fuel injection system installed on an aircraft horizontally opposed reciprocating engines measures the fuel pressure drop across the fuel nozzles. Which unit most accurately indicates fuel consumption of a reciprocating engine? Fuel flow meter. Powerplant instrument range markings show whether the current state of powerplant operation is normal, acceptable for a limited time, or unauthorized. True. Powerplant instrument range markings are based on installed engine operating limits which may not exceed, but are not necessarily equal to, those limitations. It's shown in an engine TCDS, type certificate data sheet. That is also true. What unit in a tachometer system sends information to the indicator? The three-phase AC generator. Engine oil temperature gauges indicate the temperature of the oil entering the engine. Thermocouple leads are designed for specific installation and may not be altered. Why do helicopters require a minimum of 2 synchronous tachometer systems? One indicates engine RPM and the other main rotor RPM. Generally, when a turbine engine indicates high EGT and a particular EPR when there's no significant damage, it means that the engine is out of trim. True. Some turbine-powered aircraft use RPM as the primary indicator of thrust produced. Others use EPR as the primary indicator. True. The indication on a thermocouple type cylinder head temperature indicator is produced by a current generated by the temperature difference between dissimilar metal hot and cold junctions. Instruments that measure relatively high fluid pressures, such as oil pressure gauges, are usually what type? Bourdon tube. What should be checked or changed to ensure the validity of a turbine engine performance check if an alternate fuel is to be used? Fuel-specific gravity setting. Motor-driven impeller and turbine fuel flow transmitters are designed to transmit data using aircraft electrical system power. The purpose of an exhaust gas analyzer is to indicate the fuel-air ratio being burned in the cylinders. A red triangle, dot, or diamond mark on an engine, instrument face, or glass indicates the maximum limit for high transient, such as starting. Engine pressure ratio is the ratio of the exhaust gas pressure to the engine inlet air pressure and indicates the thrust produced. True. The engine pressure ratio indicator is a direct indication of engine thrust being produced. What instrument indicates the thrust of a gas turbine engine? Engine pressure ratio indicator. What are the reasons for monitoring fuel flow? Fuel flow is an indication of engine fuel consumption and performance. What controls the manifold pressure of an engine? The engine RPM and throttle opening. The engine pressure ratio is obtained from measurements of what areas of the turbine engine? The pressure from the last stage of the inlet area and the total turbine discharge pressure are the two pressures that are used for the engine pressure ratio. How is the shaft horsepower of a turboprop engine indicated? Torque or shaft horsepower being developed by the engine is indicated on the engine torque meter gauge. What is the source of electrical power for a cylinder head temperature systems? The thermocouple. With a full oil supply in the engine, what could be the cause of a sudden drop in oil pressure with no rise in oil temperature? The oil pressure transmitter or indicator could be a cause of the malfunction. During a ground run-up of an engine with a controllable prop, in what position should the prop control be? High RPM, low pitch.